Today we're taking a look at 2-inch and 3-inch pumps from Banjo, how to repair and assemble those pumps and make best use of your time. Now, this is one of the most simple pumps on the market, and the question that we get a lot of times this year is either how to repair them, or if somebody needs to assemble a new one, how does that happen? It's a very simple step that you're able to do with some very basic tools that I'm sure you've got laying around your shop or maybe even the back of your truck. So we're going to go through everything that is inside this box as well as the repair kit and how to pair things up to this engine. Now, this video, you're also going to be able to watch these steps to repair your pump, because the assembly and repair steps are essentially the same. The only difference is you're going to start off with a housing on this engine. You have to take that housing off. You're going to have to take the volute off. You'll take the impeller off, and then you'll have to get to the back housing to the seal. We'll go through all of that in this video as we show you how to repair and assemble 2- and 3-inch Banjo pumps onto engines. The first thing you're going to want to do, set the engine aside and get into your pump box to take a look at the pump and what you need to do there for pre-assembly, or open up your repair kit if you're going through the repair side of things for the Banjo pump. What comes in this box is pretty simple. Right on top, you're going to have this full package of all of the components that you're going to need to install the pump onto the engine. Also included is going to be the pump housing. Set that to the side. That's going to be the last step. You're going to get inside. You've also got the volute sitting on top of the back housing, and then of course your back housing. Now, the back housing on the 2-inch pump only, threaded version, so it would be the 200 PO from Banjo, is going to come without the seal inside the middle here. So the first thing that you're going to have to do is take and press that seal inside there. On the 2-inch flange, the M225 PO, the 3-inch threaded, which is the 300 PO, or the M300 PO, which is going to be the flanged version of the 3-inch pump, that seal is already going to be in there. That seal is also already going to be in your impeller, so you're going to be able to skip this step. Set all of this to the side real quick. You know you're going to come back and use it, and go ahead and get into the bag with all the components that you need. Very simple thing to do here. Just simply put everything out in front of you to make sure you've got everything you need. You can also follow along with these assembly instructions that are inside here. Now, go ahead and take your check, set it to the side. That's going to be one of the last things. This little guy here, the slinger, that's going to be the first thing that you put on the engine. If you don't put this on, you're going to find that you're going to end up tearing the entire pump back apart to put this bad boy back on. So go ahead and set that to the side so you know that's going to be the first thing you do. This little box is going to contain the mechanical seal as well as the seal for the impeller. And then you've got your bag of all the hardware. Now, some people would recommend maybe saving this for a little bit later on once you get everything assembled, but I'll go ahead and go through it for you right now. This big bag, that's going to be all the nuts and bolts that are going to attach the housing to the front housing to the back housing. So take that, put those things together. Don't open that. Otherwise, you're probably going to end up losing a bunch of lock washers and nuts and all that sort of stuff, and you're going to hate yourself later on. All right, everything else that's in the bag. We've got this smaller bag of bolts and nuts, or actually bolts and washers. That's going to help you take the back housing and put it onto the engine. And then kind of loose in the bag are a few other components that you need. One being your impeller bolt, the other one being your key that's going to go inside the impeller. And then you've got a couple screws here that will attach the volute onto the back housing, so set those aside as well. And then the last thing in here is going to be the nut. This nut is going to go inside the impeller when it comes to that stage. So now that we've got everything out and about, let's go ahead and start assembling this pump. When you open your seal box, the mechanical seal and the impeller seal are going to be together. And they come in a little package that looks like this. Go ahead and open that bad boy up and get the mechanical seal out while trying hard not to touch the impeller seal that is also stacked on top of it. You see they come stacked like that. The impeller seal, that little guy, go ahead and take that, set it aside as well, and do not touch the ceramic outer coating on it. You want to try to keep your natural oils, anything like that, off there, because that can build up residue on there and essentially burn out the seal. We've got our mechanical seal here. What we've got to try to do is press it through the front side of this housing. Now there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. If you've got a press inside your shop, you can simply set this in there and press that seal in there. If you are a little bit more pressed for time, or you maybe don't have a press, saying the word press a lot here. If you don't have a press, you can take a number of different things and be able to push that through there. One thing that Banjo did do very well was take a 2-inch hose barb and make the inner diameter of that hose barb the same as the seal. So you can take those two, marry them together like that, and line your seal up, and then take a couple good whacks and push this guy into the back housing. Make sure that your hose barb is lined up on there and not touching that mechanical seal, because if you end up giving that mechanical seal a whack, you're going to end up cracking that seal and having to replace it. So carefully put it in there. Make sure you're not pressing against the seal when you go ahead and put this the rest of the way in. You can give it a couple good whacks with a hammer. If you're a guy like me, look at that. Get rid of that. Okay, we'll try that again. All right. You can line this up this way, give it a couple whacks, and that's going to press the seal all the way in there. So we'll do that now. We can see that the seal is pressed all the way in there the way that it should. There is no damage to the mechanical seal that is on there. So we'll go ahead and install this onto the front of the engine. Typically what I do at this point is I go through and I do a little bit of pre-assembly on everything else that I've got. You've got these bolts that are going to help attach that. What I typically do at this time is go through, put the washers on them, and then also put the gaskets on them, because there's a tiny gasket that goes on the back of this that's going to prevent any liquid from leaking out of the back of the housing, and be one of those things that is obviously leaking on your pump. With these pumps, you're going to find out as you tear into them, there's a couple different places that the pump will fail, and that back mechanical seal is the #1 place. That usually comes from running the pump dry. I know you wouldn't do that. You would not run the pump dry. The other guy that was running the pump was the one that ran it dry, so we'll blame him for having to replace that mechanical seal. The rest of the components that you're going to see, there is a bag of the different washers and O-rings that go in here. We'll get to this guy in a little bit. We'll set it to the side. The bigger washer that is inside there is actually going to go on the impeller bolt. So we'll take that, we'll set that to the side as well, put it next to our impeller nut. These 4 little guys, they're going to go on the end of the housing bolts, I guess I'll call them. There's probably an official name for them, but you don't care about the official name. You just mostly care about how this whole thing goes together. So as we put these guys on here, this will just kind of make things easier when we go to marry things up here to the Honda engine. Now, I mentioned you can do this with a couple basic tools. These guys right here, they're going to be a 1/2-inch socket, 1/2-inch drive. Whatever you're using to attach it to the housing, that's going to be 1/2-inch. This is going to be 1/2-inch as well. This bag of bolts that comes up here, you're going to have a 3/8 head on this and a 7/16 bolt on the back side. So I've got the basic tools right here that's going to allow me to put this together fairly easy and fairly quickly. Now the first thing I do on a new Honda engine is slide this little key off of here, because we're not going to use this key. And I do it in this position because if you end up flipping this pump up and trying to pull that off, that little key might fall back down inside that shaft and then get stuck in the recoil there, and then you've got to take the recoil off, and that's a whole lot of fun. So what I'm telling you is save yourself a little bit of headache, take that guy off. You're not going to use it, so we're going to put it over there for now. Got it. Go ahead and take this guy and slide it on over the shaft and all the way down onto the engine. I flip the engine up like this so I can work a little bit more easily with the back housing. Put the back housing on there. Now I'm going to go to my bolts that are going to attach it into the back housing. And you can see, you can kind of shake this back housing a little bit, and it'll help those bolts fall into place. What I typically do then is just do a couple hand turns on each of them to make sure that they're starting into those threads okay. And at that point, I actually use an impact, a very small, kind of weak impact, if you will, so that things move a little faster, because when you're assembling a bunch of these in a row, you kind of want to work as quickly as possible. I also dropped my extension here. There it is. Okay, 1/2-inch, real easy. And we're just going to bolt these in a little bit of a star pattern. So kind of get them started, get them down to where we hear them start getting tight. All right, we've got it on there. we'll finish tightening those down. If you are using an impact, make sure you're using an impact with not a whole lot of ugga-duggas on it, because what you'll end up doing is stripping that bolt through the housing, and then you have a big problem. Not that I've ever done that. Now that we've got the back housing on, we're going to take the pump and we're going to flip it back to its normal position here again, just so we can work with this shaft a little bit easier. And the one thing that you're going to want to do is take that, rotate the shaft so that the key is down, and I'll show you why here momentarily. Let's get back to the impeller. The 200 PO is going to come with two different impellers. One is a 3-vane impeller, one is a 5-vane impeller. The majority of people working in ag, you're always going to be using the 5-vane impeller because it's going to be pumping more. I don't know a lot of people when they go to fill that they want their pump to actually perform less unless you're trying to work for a longer time. So we're going to go with the 5-vane impeller. What we do with the 3-vane impeller is we also put it over there. Now we've got to press the seal inside. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got the impeller seal that's going to push right into this area. Again, if you have a press, you can put it on there, press it down in there. You're going to want to lubricate it a little bit, but you're not going to want to use a true oil or anything on it. What we always recommend is having kind of a spray bottle with some soapy water. You're going to spray that soapy water around the inside and then kind of coat the outside of it to lubricate it here. And then you're going to find that that seal will press down inside there a lot easier. If you try to do it without any sort of lubrication, sometimes that seal is going to get a little bit cockeyed in there. You're going to end up pulling it out. You might end up touching that outer area there and adding a little bit of debris to it and causing problems. So just take your time with this and be patient. So we get a little bit of lubrication in there. Wipe off the excess around the corner so that you don't really get any on that seal. And then take your impeller seal, position it on there straight, and then I'm usually able to push these through with just my thumbs. So you just kind of work it in there gradually. Once you see it straight, pretty close to the bottom, you just push it all the way in, and boom, we've put in our impeller seal. You can see that we've got it seated down there nice and good, and this bad boy is ready to install onto that engine. The next thing you're going to want to do is take the nut that goes in the back of this impeller and drop it in there. I have people that have told me you can take a bolt, kind of thread it on that nut, get it in there and loosen it up. I tend to seem like I screw that up. So I just take a screwdriver, kind of put it in the back, rattle that nut a little bit, and it drops in nice and easy. The next thing we do, being very careful now, we take our key and we slowly will drop it in to the front of that impeller, and then it seats down there nice and good. The reason that I told you to rotate this crankshaft on here a little bit is so that impeller key is on the bottom. You can hold it like this, and then gravity can help you a little bit as you get it to slide on there. You see I've got it slid on there. Next thing I'm going to do, just kind of take this housing, flip it back up again so that it's resting real nice on that, and then take my impeller bolt, push down on this seal a little bit so that I make sure that I'm going to be able to get into the threads on the end of the shaft, and then just hand tighten it in there. Once you've kind of got it in place, you'll see that there's a pretty good gap between the bolt itself and the impeller. You're going to want to tighten that down. So at that point, you can use your socket or you can just give it a quick with your impact. Now make sure you don't have too many ugga-duggas on your impact, because once again, you'll strip that thing out, and you'll also strip out the washer that is sitting there as well. That little O-ring is kind of meant to protect everything, and if you tighten things down too much, you're going to strip that thing right out of there. Again, not that I've ever done that. Now that we've got that bolt tightened down, we move to the next step in this, which is we're going to start installing the volute. Why do they call it a volute? Well, because it volutes. I actually don't know why it's a volute. I'm sure it means something. I'm not a smart man. All right, let's go to this little O-ring. What is this guy doing? Well, you'll see on the end of this, on the top of this housing, there's a little space where that O-ring is going to drop right inside there. Now, I've struggled with this the first couple times I did a pump, because what I tried to do was put my finger on one side and kind of stretch it into that area. And what happens, it gets twisted, it keeps popping out, keeps popping out, keeps popping out. What I recommend is lubricating this a little bit, getting this side of it wet, and then just kind of pressing it into the top. Makes things a lot easier. Now you've got that soapy water, you can do that, or you can use the spaghetti noodle procedure that I typically do with these. So bear in mind, we just do that, Give her a quick little lick on there, or use the soapy water, but in the essence of time, we're gonna do that. And then, like I said, you just kind of lay it in there. Don't like press and stretch it in there, because it ends up curling and then it wants to fall out. So once you've got that in there, you basically start it right by the hole that is on the side over here that the volute is going to bolt to. And then make sure you've got it seated in there good. This little corner always wants to roll up on you. Once you've got it, line up your volute, get it on there, give it a little tap to make sure that it's pressed all the way down. Once the volute is on, you've got 3 screws to install. There's 2 right here on the ears, and then there's 1 right on the top of the volute. These are Phillips head. They're very simple to put on there. What I usually do is get them all started, because if you tighten one down sooner than the other, that volute's gonna wanna pop up one direction or the other. So what I'm gonna do, start one on each one of these sides, tighten them down pretty well, but not all the way down. This way they're at least holding in place first. As you can see, it's a pretty simple process as we go through putting this together. Now, the disassembly instructions are essentially the exact opposite. Once you get this housing off, and that housing's pretty easy to come off, this is what you're gonna be faced with, the first thing. And how do you get it off? Well, you just take these 3 screws off, and you take your check off as well. Now, the thing you will find on these ears, in order to get them tight, you essentially have to crack the plastic on the sides of these. So don't think that you've gone too far, but then also don't go too far and strip the screw out. You'll kind of feel it tight, and then it just barely gets loose. That's when you stop. Now that we've got everything good and tight on there, put our check on. Make sure this is visible to you. I can't tell you the number of times that I've put together one of these pumps, had that check sitting over here. I grab this housing, put the housing on, get all the bolts on, look down and go, ah! Got to take it all apart and put that guy on. You've got your outer body O-ring here. It fits on real easily. It might come with a little twist to it, so just kind of, work it so it's nice and flat. I typically put it around the top like this, and then kind of stretch it, give it a little half curl with my fingers down here. This way it snaps on and it doesn't want to roll back over the top. At this point, we're going to position our housing so it lines up. Obviously the output is going to be on the top. We've got it on there, sitting nice and even all the way around. Don't stress too much if it's not sitting exactly perfect, because as you start putting these bolts on, it's going to pull everything into place. You do want to make sure that you've got things pretty even, otherwise you're going to end up with a gap. And at this point, I usually just go through, drop all my bolts in here, because if they don't fall all the way down right away, it usually means you're off by just a hair, and you can turn this a little bit and they'll start dropping in for you. And then you're lined up, and you're not going to damage the ends of these bolts with putting them through with too much force. So yeah, as I can see, I'm off by just a little bit here, and there we go. They just start dropping in. Boom, 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 boom. And there we go. Just a little bit of force sometimes you got to do with your finger. If you find yourself hitting these with a hammer, you don't have it lined up perfectly. There we go. Got them all down. Now it is time to put our lock washers on, and of course the nuts. The trick that I have is I will start with the bottom here and kind of put these on in a star pattern. I only put on 3 of the bolts to begin with, 3 of the nuts I should say to begin with. I start with these bottom 2 because once I have those tightened, I can reach every other bolt from the side. And I do recommend just putting on these 2 bolts first and then flipping over to this side of the housing. This way you can tighten this one, then go to the bottom one, and then flip the engine to the side. And I'll show you why here in a second. So once I've got those on, I don't put on any of the other nuts yet, because what happens in this position, if you start putting them on and it doesn't thread on perfectly and you drop one, you end up dropping one down into the housing, you get one in the fins, you get one back here in the recoil, and then you've got to probably waste as much time as it took you to put the pump together trying to fish that guy out. So once it's like this, I recommend tightening down these 3 bolts and then flipping to the side. The way I do this is with a little impact extension. This might look like overkill, but when you get to these top bolts up here, you're going to need the clearance to get to it. 7/16 on the back, 3/8 on the front, and then just what we simply do, just give her a little tighten down so as not to pull it too far. And then as we've got this one over here, we tighten that one down a little bit more. And now that we've got that, we go back to the bottom. Pull that together. I've got no crack down there. I'm going to go back to my first one, give it another little just quick, make sure she's tight. And as I mentioned, we flip the pump this way so that as we install the rest of these guys, we don't end up dropping the lock washers and nuts into the housing, because once again, that is a nightmare. So if you are repairing one of these pumps, one of the reasons you're going to have to repair it is usually because it's leaking from this back housing. What causes that back housing to leak? A number of things. You get a crack in the seal, maybe you left water in the pump and the pump froze and then it cracked the seal that way. Maybe you ran it dry. With these poly pumps, whether it's a 2-inch or 3-inch, if they don't have that wet seal reservoir, you do run the potential of running them dry if you don't have liquid going through your system. They do come, each one of these pumps does come with an area that you can prime it. You can dump just a little bit of water in there if you're afraid it's going to run for a while before you get a water source in there. The biggest thing that you want to do is just make sure that you've got liquid flowing to this pump. It is a self-priming pump, so it will pull that liquid into the line. But the number one issue that we have usually after startup, if a guy walks out with one of these, is he instantly runs it dry. He ends up having an issue with the seal right away, and then you've got to tear all this off to get all the way to that back housing as well. Another thing that will happen is sometimes you'll start getting a leak around here. Sometimes that means a bolt and nut just came loose. If that happens, you can tighten it up. If it continues to leak, it might indicate that there is some damage to that body O-ring. What can happen there is if you pump a lot of fertilizer or if you've got chemical going through one of these pumps, it can eat away at those EPDM seals inside there. At that point, you either replace the seal, or maybe you're using a product that says that you need to upgrade into a Viton kick. Now that I've got all the nuts on there, I'm just going to simply go through and tighten things down in a little bit of a star pattern so as the housing will pull itself together, kind of like me every Monday. I've got to pull myself together. And that's it. We've put together a 2-inch Banjo pump. This is the 200 PO pump going on a GX 160 Honda engine. As I mentioned earlier in the video, if you're doing an M225, an M300, or a 300 PO Banjo pump, you're not going to have to do all that mess with the seals. They go on even quicker than this. The disassembly, as I mentioned earlier, is just these steps and backwards. You're going to take this housing off. You're going to pull the 3 screws off of the volute. You're going to take that impeller, hold it in place. You're going to back the bolt out of that to take the impeller off, and then take off your back housing to be able to repair that back seal. There's a lot of different ways to knock that back seal out of there. Sometimes you can do it with a simple socket extension that is slightly bigger than the seal and just knock it back out the other way to be able to install. Now, the last thing that I'll tell you, if you are going through repair of these, this back housing, pull it off, check it, make sure there aren't any cracks in it. Sometimes you'll get a crack in this back housing because you froze liquid in it or something like that, and you've got to just replace that entire back housing. If you've got the whole thing off, at that point, just put the new pump on it, and of course you can get that through any Ag Spray equipment location and purchasing online at agspray.com. I hope this video was helpful, gave you an opportunity to learn a little bit about 2- and 3-inch Banjo pumps, how to repair them, and how to assemble them. I'm Jason with Ag Spray Equipment. Make sure you like and subscribe our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X, and all the other social media places. Ag Spray Equipment, we can be your home for anything. Liquid application, spraying equipment, parts, and accessories, anything you need to keep you in the field. Thanks, everyone.